Okay? Yeah, that's
Hello everybody and welcome back for another dose of Dude's Comic Book Goodness. I'm Jason and this is my weekly video where I review the books that I picked up this week, as well as review the latest episode of Arrow and share with you some of the good stuff that I found in comics this week. First up, we're going to be doing my reviews. 9 books to get through this week. 3 from Marvel Comics, 3 from DC Comics, 2 from Image Comics and 1 from Dark Horse Comics. So without further ado, let's get to those reviews. First up in my reviews this week, we have issue number 3 of 3. I'm really enjoying this book. I love the whole historical context. I love that because you feel like it's a kind of insidious way of making you learn while you read. And I always love a bit of historical fiction. We have got our 3 slaves on the run this issue. Whereas the first issue very much dealt with the setup of the story, the second issue dealt with the Spartans' response. This issue now, very much the story's getting moving. We've got our Spartan king who's going off to find these 3 slaves and how he's going about that. We've also got the guy who survived the first issue massacre. He gets punished for surviving, but he's on his own quest for revenge. So all of our characters are kind of set up now, and the story's really moving forward brilliantly. The art is great again, and the use of colour in this book is just magnificent. It is a masterclass in how to use colour to set tones for different scenes. But all in all, I'm just really loving this book. It's a lot of fun. If you want something a bit different from your superhero stuff, or you like a bit of history, this is definitely a book to pick up. And I give issue number 3, 5 stars. So next we have issue number 12 of Savage Wolverine. I think this came out a few weeks ago, but I just picked it up this week. This is a book I kind of tend to dip in and out of. The whole concept of the book is like a creative team come on, they tell their Wolverine story, and then they go and a new creative team come in and tell their Wolverine story. So it's not kind of like an ongoing one as such. The current story arc, which I think is 2 issues, kicks off this issue. And it's set around Wolverine and some guys that are going around killing rhinos for the ivory horns, and they're leaving them to die basically. And it's really brutal in what they're doing to these animals. And Wolverine becomes their defender, and he's going to track down and stop whoever's doing this. It's a very interesting kind of take on Wolverine, because I don't think I've ever seen him be the moral authority on anything before. He usually just takes care of bad guys and gets into bad stuff, and this actually worked really well. The whole thing with the animals and the whole hunting thing as well. I really liked the tone that they wrote Wolverine as in here. The art is magnificent. I've not heard of this artist Jimenez before, but I really like the way he draws Wolverine, and all in all, this was a real surprise. I really enjoyed it. The twist at the end I could see coming, but even so, it was still a really good issue. Really enjoyed this. Definitely going to pick up the second part, and I give issue number 12 of Savage Wolverine 4 stars. Next up we have Captain America issue number 14, and I've got to say I think this is one of the most underappreciated books out there right now, because it is fantastic, but nobody seems to be talking about it. This issue, Remender is doing a top job with the book. He gives us so much to think about. Sometimes it's nice to have a book that's just all action and you can just enjoy it and you don't have to engage your brain much. But sometimes it's nice to read a book that stays with you for a while afterwards and gets you think on things. This issue, for example, looks at like the freedom of the press. How much freedom should they have? Also, it looks at like S.H.I.E.L.D. and what gives them the right to kind of be able to go to these countries and decide what people know and people don't know. Who watches the watchers, so to speak. So, there was some really interesting stuff brought up in here. Add to that, there's a great scene between Cap and Nuke, and there's fantastic Captain America monologue, which is brilliant. I feel Remender has just really got who Captain America is, that there's this sense of honor, but at the same time, he'll kick your ass if your ass needs kicking. He's still badass, but he's also got a sense of honor, and I like that, and I think he's got the tone just right for Cap. This book, I'm really enjoying it. I'm loving the art as well. Carlos Pacheco is on art now, and I'm really loving Pacheco's artwork in this. A lot of it is to do with, I think, the colouring as well, and that just works so well. You know, but yeah, I just this whole issue was just an absolute joy. You know, and I wish more people tried this book, because it is a really good book. And I give Captain America issue number 14 5 stars. So next up we have Wolverine issue number 12. This is a new book that I've not picked up before. Wolverine's long been one of my favourite characters, though I do feel over recent years, because of he's in so many books now, that his character has been a bit diluted, hasn't been as strong as in previous years. Though I recently found out that Ryan Stegman is going to be the artist on this book when they relaunch it next year. So I've really loved his stuff on Spider-Man, so I was really excited about that. So I thought, you know, I'll check out what Paul Cornell's Wolverine's like because I definitely will pick up the first issue of the Ryan Stegman Wolverine. So I thought, yeah, I want to see what we've been doing. This issue as issue 5 of 6, part 5 of 6 of a storyline called Killable. Wolverine's no longer got his healing factor, so all these villains are trying to get to kill him. To make matters worse, Sabretooth is now in charge of this group of ninjas called the Hand, and he has put this bounty out on Wolverine for anyone who kills Wolverine. So that everybody now is trying to kill Wolverine. They've trapped him in this shopping mall. Wolverine can't get out. He's together with Kitty Pryde and a group of security guards. They're trapped inside, and Wolverine has to kind of try and protect them. But the way that the villains are striking him, it's not your typical, oh, we're going to beat you up and kill you. No, it kind of reminds me of like the Death of a Thousand Cuts, where they attack him, injure him, and then pull out. But they keep doing this over and over. And Wolverine's used to pain, but he's used to pain getting better. And now it's not getting better; it's just staying bad. So yeah, I found myself really enjoying this, and I came into it not expecting to enjoy it as much as I did. I like the whole kind of thing, the Death of a Thousand Cuts kind of deal, where the villains have been a bit more sadistic with him. That seemed to be right in tone for Wolverine's villains. I like he's got this inner struggle as well over just losing it and going out in a blaze of glory, or trying to protect the people that he's with. And so you got that inner struggle going on there as well. So yeah, I actually found myself really enjoying it. There's some nice twists and turns along the way as well, and yeah, this was just a real pleasant surprise. The art does feel a bit retro-y, but not in a bad way. And while I wouldn't rave about the art, I wouldn't gripe about it either. All in all, I thought this was a pleasant surprise, and I give Wolverine issue number 12 4 stars. Next we have Lazarus from Image Comics, and this is issue 5. And this issue felt very much like a very first chapter of a book. We're rounding off like the stuff that happened last issue. We're getting recaps, like kind of letting you know who all the characters are. We get like some glimpses of Forever's childhood. We get a little bit more on the email. We know the email was true, but Forever still doesn't. But she's got her doubts, and so that creates a bit more of a mystery going on there. We're introduced to some new characters to set up where the next story is going, which looks like we're going to be looking at a bit more at the Waste and how they interact with everybody else. So yeah, it's still a really good book. The art is exceptional. But yeah, it does feel like a first chapter, so I think if you've been tempted to pick this book up, this is a fantastic time to jump on, the start of a new story, and it recaps enough that I don't think you'd be lost. And this just remains a really fine book, really enjoying it. I really like that cover as well. Sometimes, you know, covers can be a bit too busy, but that's just striking enough that I like that. But I give Lazarus issue number 5 4 stars. So from Dark Horse Comics, we have next up Star Wars issue number 12. And if Lazarus felt very much like a first chapter, this was very much like a final chapter, as this really rounds off our initial story arc that's been running for the first 12 issues. We get characters leaving and saying goodbye, we get things explained, and and also kind of new threads started. So yeah, very much like a final chapter. There's a really sad, poignant moment in here with Luke, but for me the highlight of the issue was the interaction between Han and Leia. It reminded me so much of the early part of Empire Strikes Back. It was just brilliant. It was a delight to read. The art remained exceptional. Carlos D'Anda does a great job with this book, from making the characters feel like the characters while not being a slave to making them look like the actors who played them. But also the way he draws all of his different spacecraft is just superb. This book just remains a real joy. If you're a Star Wars fan, this is definitely a book worth checking out. And I give Star Wars issue number 12 5 stars. Next up we have Constantine, issue number 9 from DC Comics. This continues the Forever Evil Blight storyline that's been running through all the magic-based DC books. And I've got to say, this was for me the most disappointing installment thus far of Blight. We expected a more Constantine-centric issue because it's Constantine's book, but the other characters really get nothing really to do apart from getting their butts whipped. Phantom Stranger gets like maybe a little bit of dialogue, but the other characters were not really there at all. Also, Constantine just was very un-Constantine-like. All the times, I'm not a big expert on Constantine, but what I've read of him in the New 52, he's always got a plan. If he's going to go to lengths to get that he went to get Pandora and the Phantom Stranger, he's going to have plans of how to use them to defeat Blight. And this whole issue was just a very un-Constantine-like person. It was so different from what we've read over the last parts of this story, even that it was unrecognisable at times from the character we've known. He just had no plan at all. It was a complete loss, and that's not John Constantine at all. Even if he hasn't got a plan, he'll still find a way to get away and escape, until he gets a plan. The art initially I hated. It did grow on me as the story went on, but wasn't. I think it's more comes down to a thing of taste rather than the art was good or bad. It just wasn't to my taste. The things that did save this issue for me were there's a really good monologue at the end from Constantine. In a monologue that was really good and I felt was really in tone with the character. And also there's a nice scene where we get to see Sargon and we start to get a few hints of what happened to these other people. So those two threads really saved this book for me. Obviously it would have been lower, but because of those two threads I give Constantine issue number 9 3 stars. So next up, our penultimate book to be reviewed this week is Justice League issue number 25 from DC Comics. It is a Forever Evil tie-in, and this is a perfect example of what a tie-in issue should be. You don't need to read the main Forever Evil story. This doesn't impact on that in a way. You can read the main Forever Evil story and you're fine. But if you're enjoying that story and you read this will add meat to the bones of the story without being an essential read. This issue we deal with the origin of Owlman, which is the Earth 3 counterpart to Batman. And like last issue we had Ultraman and his origin, and it was similar to Superman. This one, Owlman's is very similar to Batman's, but then there's like this kind of turn down Evil Street where the origin goes a different direction. So it has those familiar elements into it, which make it cool, which helps you the story. But then it goes down this other way, which I just love. I love these kind of alternate stories. So for me, I just love that. And the way that they have the differences and the similarities there, even down to like how Bruce Wayne had that moment where he picks the bat to be his symbol. There's a similar moment here for Owlman with the owl, which I really like. I just thought it was really well crafted. We get to understand a little bit more why Owlman has such an obsession for Dick Grayson and why Dick isn't dead yet. And you know, all in all, this was just a really strong issue, and if you're enjoying Forever Evil, I would go as far to say, this is a must read if you're enjoying the book. If you're not really that into Forever Evil, you won't lose anything not reading it. But if you're liking it, this just adds even more great stuff to the plate. Again, we get a lot of inkers and colorists on this book, which I don't understand why, but it didn't affect my enjoyment of the book. And yeah, for me, just a perfect example of a tie-in. I give Justice League issue number 25 5 stars. And finally this week we have Batman issue number 26 from DC Comics, and this is just another fantastic issue. Though it doesn't say so on the cover, this is another part of the 0 year storyline that Snyder's been running. And yeah, the art throughout this book, as always, is great, but the use of colour here, how early in the issue with the scenes with Dr. Death, it's kind of like a pink and a blue, and then we go to like the scenes in the hospital with Gordon, and the scenes are like bright like the hospital lights, and then back to Batman and it's dark again. I just felt the use of colour throughout this issue was just tremendous and really complemented the fantastic art. The story itself is really good. I really like Dr. Death as a villain. I think the way that they have him talking about the bones, and he knows all these things about bones, just add that extra creepiness to him that you already got from the way Capullo has drawn him, and just really add to that. The highlight of this issue was for me the confrontation between Bruce Wayne and James Gordon. I love that scene. It was a real standout for me in this issue. The cliffhanger, again, another really good cliffhanger where you're wondering how is Bruce going to get out of this one. But all in all, this book has just been on a really good roll, and it just continues this roll. Brilliant book. Totally enjoyed it, and I give Batman issue number 26 a definite 5 stars. Well, hello, welcome to my review of Arrow, as we're up to issue 8 of season 2 now, the episode called The Scientist. The big thing about this episode is it introduces the character of Barry Allen, better known to DC fans as The Flash. The thing that I didn't know for sure was whether he was going to have superpowers yet or not, and I liked that we're introducing him as a character before superpowers, which I like, because that's something that he can go off and do in his own series then. But what I really liked here is we get to see the hero before he has the powers, and to see that there's a hero there already. I like that they kept the origin story intact, because I think Barry Allen has a really good origin story, not just how he becomes the Flash, but also his childhood and the fact that his father has been locked up for the murder of his mom. And I like that they kept all that in there and they didn't tinker with it, because sometimes these origin stories so right you don't really need to tinker with it. If it ain't broke, why fix it? What was also really good in this episode, we get to see some superpowers, as for the first time Ollie faces somebody with superpowers, and it's really interesting that we're moving into this phase now where pretty much the first season was all people who could do roughly realistic things with training. And that the universe is getting bigger, but also we're starting to bring superpowers into it. I like that they're tying it into the island as well, that this is something that Ollie has seen on the island. So as we're learning more about the island, it's kind of impacting modern day, which I find really nice. I like the relationship between Barry and Felicity. I like that buddy relationship, and it was nice that she got some loving for once, because so far in the series, Diggle and Ollie have got plenty of loving, and it's nice that Felicity's getting a bit now, so that's nice. The island stuff continues to be really strong, and I like how the dynamics are changing, how Shadow and Slade are a lot closer, and you can see that, and how Sarah has kind of changed the dynamic, and Shadow is a lot closer with Slade now. There's also some really cool stuff going on there, which I'm looking forward to see how it all going to play out. I like Roy Harper is another real thing that I really liked in this episode, and I've liked the slow burn. We don't know for sure whether he will at some point become Ollie's sidekick like in the comic, but I like that they haven't rushed that if they are going in that direction, and we're not certain they are, but if they do go in that direction eventually, I like that we didn't rush there, and that they're kind of letting it breathe and letting it build. So the people like us that know the comics, we're excited because we can see where that could potentially go. But then people who've never read the books but maybe just like the TV show will be seeing the story develop better. And so yeah, I think they've done really well with Roy Harper. The cliffhanger was brilliant, and I thought the episode built to it beautifully and just had me on tender hooks for next week. This episode was just brilliant all the way through. Fantastic geek fest for me. I love how they're opening up the universe a lot more with mentions of characters like Ra's al Ghul. Yeah, it's just this show just keeps going from strength to strength, and I give Arrow season 2 episode 8, The Scientist, I give it 5 stars. Well, you've made it to the good stuff. This is the end of my video where I share with you some of the good things I found in comics this week, some of the positive stuff. First of all, I had a bit more of a haul. The last 2 books I ordered, they arrived this week. These will be the last trades I buy until after Christmas, so it'll keep me well busy. First up, we have Hawkeye, My Life as a Weapon, which I'm looking forward to reading that. I've got the single issues, but now that I've kind of decided I'm going to pick some books up as trade, there's that part of my brain that needs to be a completist, that I can't get a series midway through even if I've read the first ones. So yeah, so I have to go back to the beginning and read this, which it wasn't a bad thing to read it again because it was a really good book. And also the other book that's come is Volume 1 of Mark Waid's Daredevil. I've started reading this. I'm up to issue 4 at the moment, and it's been really good so far. But with Daredevil, I did jump on that series later on. It was kind of the late teens when I jumped onto it, so there was quite a bit that I'd missed. So it's really cool going back to the beginning and seeing kind of elements that you see come back in later on there, which is really cool. And yeah, it's just as good as it is all the way through. So I've been enjoying that. So expect to see a review for that soon. Also this week, the other thing that I saw that was good in my comic book shop, I picked one of these up. As we kick off the second wave, I think wave 2 of the Marvel Now, all new Marvel Now. There's some books there. I'm definitely going to be getting X Factor, and I might try Savage Wolverine. I'm not sure. If there's too many other books, I might not get that, but definitely X Factor's on my list. Invaders, I've got to decide whether I'm going to pick that up as a monthly or whether I'm going to get that as a trade. Black Widow, I think I'm definitely going to get that as a trade. Avengers World, I'm also in 2 minds because I don't like Hickman's Avengers, but I do like the idea behind Avengers World, so I might try the first issue of that out. So yeah, the other big news this week was they're going to do a Venom movie and a Sinister Six movie, I heard. It's always good news when there's going to be another more superhero movies. Don't quite know how those are going to work. I think if they did like the Venom with Flash Thompson, I think that could work as a single movie. But you've got to get there first, and we haven't even seen him in the Spider-Man films yet. So I am a bit concerned how it's all going to work out, but I'm sure I think it'll. And that's the same as well with Sinister Six. How's that going to work out? Because we haven't set up all the villains from that yet. If it was going to be like kind of like the Superior Foes of Spider-Man version of the Sinister Six, I think that would make a good movie, and it would be a different kind of superhero movie. But all in all, though, yeah, it's always good news when you hear they're going to do more superhero movies. That's always going to be a good thing. So yeah, that is me done for this week. Thank you as always very much for watching my video. I will be back as always next week. So yeah, I've been Jason. This has been Dude's Comic Book Goodness. Bye for now.